Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 339, cover dated December 1996. So the cover features Havok versus Cyclops, brother versus brother is the caption. The art is by Adam Kubert, pencils and inks. I like the design decision to leave the background open white, so the figures in our foreground really pop. And it's a dynamic scene of these two brothers tussling. It'll turn out they're falling from a plane once we get into the story inside. So let's open this one up to the splash page. And the splash features Spider-Man. It is 3:14 in the morning. And it is the X Mansion in Upper Westchester, New York. And Spider-Man there dodging some blasts. Who's blasting at him? For this, he says, I came all the way to Westchester. Better I should have stayed in Manhattan. So let's turn the page and see who could it be that is blasting away at Spider-Man. Oh yes, it's Hothead Bishop, who is responsible for mansion security. So there he is blasting away. That's a really nice shot. Nice use of perspective there by Adam Kubert. Adam Kubert is the artist of the first 9 pages of this 24-page comic. There are 15 pages by another artist. We'll get to him in a moment. But yeah, I really like the foreshortening on that huge blaster that Bishop is using to shoot at Spider-Man. This is a really dynamic, laid out double-page spread. I like the tilted angles of the panels. And also Spider-Man here kicking Bishop in the head. That's pretty good stuff as he grabs the blaster with his webbing. From Bishop. And of course you can see now that this is the mid-90s redesign of Spider-Man's classic costume. Really, you might ask yourself what was the point of that, but in the mid-90s there was a kind of a sense of malaise within the superhero comics industry. The speculator boom was over, comic sales were going down, and so there was all kinds of reconfigurations of characters playing around with the established formula in order to try and attract new readers for titles. And one of those changes was the redesign of Spider-Man's costume. And yeah, you just have to ask yourself, what's the point? So, and I'm sure there's probably people who do like the redesigned costume. There always is on the internet. But I just say to myself, what's the point of it? So let's continue with the story. Why has Spider-Man come to the X Mansion? Well, we turn the page and we get a very nice little inset panel there of Spider-Man being yanked from behind by Beast. And Beast there crouched down on top of the porch over the entrance, the main door entrance to the X Mansion. That's a really nice angle that Adam Kubert has chosen. Title of the story is Fight and Flight. The script is by Scott Lobdell. And as I said a couple of minutes ago, there's 2 artists involved in this, Adam Kubert and Cedric Nocon. So Kubert handles the first 9 pages and Nocon the next 15. I did a little research on Cedric Nocon. He was active in the industry from 1991 to 2001, did work at Marvel, but also did a lot of work in the beginning at Extreme Studios. So worked on Brigade, worked on Supreme, I think, did some work on for Wildstorm, did work on the Grifter miniseries, also worked for Top Cow. And once we get to see his style, it's very much influenced by Mark Silvestri. So Cedric Nocon, a Filipino artist, and like I said, active for a decade in the industry before it seems disappearing after 2001. So there's a funny little bit here where Spider-Man recognizes, of course, Beast and Cyclops and Marvel Girl. So he gets Jean's code name wrong. She's since changed to Phoenix, but he doesn't know that because it's been quite some time since Spider-Man has met up with the X-Men in the Marvel Universe. But of course, these two are well known to each other. Spider-Man comments on Wolverine's altered physical appearance, and Wolverine sort of. Yeah, there's Jean wondering about the name Marvel Girl. Bishop, Wolverine says Spidey Bishop, and then the introductions are made there, and Bishop looking quite sheepish down there in the corner of the panel. This is another nicely laid out page here where Spider-Man has dropped to the ground, so he's crouched down, so that's good body language there from Adam Kubert. And now we're looking up at Jean and Scott. By the way, This kind of blue and white stripy pajamas that Scott's wearing, that goes way back. That goes back, if you check out issue 171, drawn by Walter Simonson of Uncanny X-Men, Scott is wearing the same pajamas. So I hope it's not the exact same pajamas, but he certainly likes a style of pajamas, and he likes those blue and white stripes. So why is Spider-Man there at the X-Mansion? Well, he's there to give a warning. By the way, I can't help but comment on the spotting of blacks across these couple of pages as well. Really nice spotting of blacks and uplighting here, and also the lighting coming down from the lamp in the porch as well. It's really well done. So Spider-Man explains he's there to give the X-Men a warning. I recently learned from a friend, the friend of course is himself, Peter Parker, that Jonah Jameson, no friend of mine, you know, is using his Daily Bugle newspaper to sniff out major dirt on Grade and Creed. So this is the era where nobody knows, none of the superhero community really know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but something has been going on in wider X-Men continuity regarding Jean's telepathy. It's kind of boosted, and she's surprised here. I'm getting an image from Spider-Man's mind. Someone, his friend, talking to Jameson, so she doesn't get the info that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But why am I seeing this, she asked. I didn't attempt to read his mind with my telepathic powers, but it's something to do with X-Man. So a little plug there for the X-Man title around this era. Scott asked Jean telepathically using their link whether something's wrong, and she says, we'll talk later. So then we get this nice top-down angle on the outside of the X-Mansion. Beast perched there on top of the porch. Spider-Man has gotten up and he says, I figured cause Creed is running for president on an anti-mutant platform, you guys would want to know. So why didn't he just make a phone call, eh? Anyway, the scene switches to Falls Edge, Virginia, home of the government-sanctioned team of mutants known as X-Factor. So in the continuity of the time, this is where X-Factor's base is. And members of X-Factor at this time include Mystique, who is Graydon Creed's mother, and Forge. And the last time that these two were in this particular title was Uncanny X-Men 290, Whilce Portacio's last issue, more or less, was the last time that we saw them in the title. So interesting to see them back. And of course, the fact that they are together, predicted by Destiny way back in Uncanny X-Men 254 and 255. So going all the way back to Claremont continuity. So Mystique is watching TV, CNN, for a report on her son, and she's contemplating here assassinating him. What a lead story that'll make, CNN. Raven Darkholme, the shape-shifting mutant anarchist named Mystique, used her connections as a member of X-Factor to get close enough to assassinate Graydon Creed, her son. It's the only way to ensure that the United States doesn't become a giant graveyard for mutants. So interesting callback to another Claremont storyline, Days of Future Past, where it was Mystique in her first appearance leading the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, determining to kill Senator Robert Kelly, who was potentially a candidate for president, as well as Professor X, that brought about the dystopian future of 2013 that Kate Pride came back from in order to prevent it happening. So we're getting a little parallel going on here, but Mystique is just indulging like a little fantasy there. She's not going to do anything. And in particular, once she spies on the TV an interesting side profile. So she gets the computer to freeze on the figure, enhance it, cross-reference with X-Men files and identity, and so the computer confirms that it's Robert Drake, designate Iceman. So Cyclops has Iceman and Cannonball acting as undercover operatives in Graydon Creed's presidential campaign in order to keep an eye on him. So Mystique is really intrigued. That's a really nice drawing of her there in Adam Kubert's art. The X-Men have planted one of their own on Creed's support staff. She says right under his nose, not only am I suitably impressed, but this changes everything. So that is a plot line developing there. And then the scene switches to JFK International Airport in New York City. I really like that horizontal establishing shot, and you can see Concorde there in the background. And so this was the era, just a couple of years before Concorde would stop flying. And aboard Concorde we have Henry McCoy, aka the Beast, and he is trailing, but unsuccessfully, J. Jonah Jameson, because how is J. Jonah not going to see a blue furry mutant sitting directly behind him on the plane? So Jonah says to him, "I'm getting closer, right?" And Beast feigns ignorance, pardon moi. And Jonah Jameson says, "I must be getting closer to the truth about Creed, otherwise you wouldn't be tailing me." So this is what J. Jonah's up to. He knows there's something dodgy ingrained in Creed's past, and he's determined to get to the bottom of it. And so he's spied Beast, and Beast kind of unhappy there that Jonah spotted him. But how could he not? And then Jonah, I really like this, he's tilted back the seat of his, like the back of his seat there on the plane, with a big happy smile on his face. By the way, I hate it when people drop their seat back when I'm on the plane. I really don't like that at all. But let's get back to the story. So Concorde takes off from the airport, and who else is aboard further back in the plane? It's Cyclops, and he is dressed as a very kind of mid to late 90s grunge looking type, with the floppy hair and the ripped t-shirt showing off his midriff. And he's thinking all the while about the fact that Professor X has now left the X-Men. He's in protective government custody. Dr. Val Cooper is looking after him, and so Cyclops is the leader of the X-Men now. And he's kind of wondering there, how would the professor handle things like this? Would he be proud, disappointed? Then there's another voice that whispers, "Do what you feel is right." Of course, that's Jean, but she's my wife. What's she supposed to say? So Cyclops having little doubts there about his leadership decisions. I don't know that I like that characterization. Cyclops, by this point in his career, should be pretty determined on his courses of action. But in any case, it makes for a little bit of drama. And Cyclops, cleverly, this is more like his character, has some backup. And the backup is Storm and Joseph trailing them in the Concorde while cloaked in the Blackbird. And so now we go into the cockpit of the Blackbird, and Joseph is there, and he's saying, because he's amnesiac, he has been studying personnel tapes to familiarize himself with the X-Men, and he wants to get some more information about the connection between Cyclops and Cable. So that sets up a funny little bit in a few pages' time. But that brings us to the end of Adam Kubert's section of the issue. So now we're on to Cedric Nocon, and you will see here, I think, that he's very much influenced at this point by Mark Silvestri, and probably some of the work he'd done for Top Cow. So the scene switches to the London Wilshire Hotel, and we have a Daily Bugle reporter, their London correspondent, Nick Bandoveris, and he is the one who has discovered Graydon Creed's parentage, and he knows that this is information that could cost him his life, and so he has called Jonah Jameson to come in person to London in order that he give him the file. He's obviously not trusting talking over the phone or sending anything by email. And there he is, worried and wondering about when J. Jonah will get there. So then we're back aboard the Blackbird. So we had a setup for this payoff concerning the knotty history of the relationship between Cable and Cyclops that all comes out there. It's pretty funny stuff. And just as Joseph thinks he's got it all correct, is that all of it? Yeah, Storm adds, the additional kicker, except for the part about Cable's sister, he says, more of a half-sister from his father's possible future reality. So that's Rachel, of course, and yeah, really complicated stuff. But now we're going to get the action. The action is happening. The sensors are picking up a ship dropping out of cloak mode, and this member of the Brotherhood beams aboard, or telepathically or psionically beams himself into the Concorde, and he tells everyone, stay calm, Do as you're told, and the possibility exists that you might live. Oppose us, you die. And then there is an energy blast that rips off the top of the plane's fuselage. And who jumps aboard or flies aboard? These bands around his shoulders turn out to be anti-grav units that allow him to fly, in effect. It's Havok. It's Alex Summers' Havok. So Havok has once again gone over to the dark side, always doing that, most often because of telepathic manipulation. This time it appears as if he's made the decision himself of his own free will. So Beast here acts to pull Jonah out of harm's way because Havok was about to blast him. And yeah, so now you can really see the influence of Silvestri there on Havok's face. Also this kind of dynamic page here with the musculature on Cyclops' arms here. Really beefy arms, like he's really been working out. It's good stuff, I think. And what happens, of course, is that Cyclops spots his brother and hits him with an optic blast. And there we have the distinctive and characteristic sound effect always used, Zark. And then begins the argument between brothers. So, like, basically what happens here is that Cyclops blasts the anti-grav bands around Havok's costume. It's the and Havok is taken by surprise. The anti-grav unit, how did you know? It's the newest addition to your costume, Alex. I did the math, but there's nothing to keep us grounded, says Alex. That was the point, to get you away from the innocent people on board, says Cyclops. Besides, I thought this would give me the opportunity to talk some sense into you as they fall from 30,000 feet. Like, how are they not frozen to death? But in any case, Havok replies, you're crazy. You're going to kill us both. I'm crazy. Asks Cyclops, I'm not the one shearing off the tops of commercial jets, am I? So there is the Concorde up there. Concorde is like a supersonic jet. Like, they should be dead. But in any case, it's comics and they're not dead, and they're falling from 30,000 feet to the earth and having this fraternal quarrel. So Havok basically says to his brother that he's not being mind controlled. And he refers back to the first time the two of them were thrown out of a plane by their mother with one parachute between them. From the moment our mother tossed us out of that plane, says Havok, both you and I, our lives have been in free fall. I'm through with no longer being in control of my powers, my own mind. I refuse to be hunted by one sentinel after the next. I can think of 8 different incidents when my thoughts have been controlled by one mutant lunatic or another since the moment I was first dragged into the X-Men. Never again, Cyclops. From this moment on, I'm in control. So they're fighting away, but what happens is that Cyclops tries, like, it looks like Havok is going to blast Concorde from the air in order to take out Jameson, and Cyclops just manages to knock his hand somewhat, so the plasma blast doesn't destroy the plane, but it takes out one of the engines, it looks like. Hank is aboard the Beast and he thinks this isn't good at all. I give us about an 1/8 of a second before the jet spins completely out of control, assuming the stress doesn't reduce it to so much shrapnel first. But of course, Cyclops was right to have Storm and Magneto, aka Joseph, trail them in the Blackbird. So Magneto is there in order to grab Concorde and keep it magnetically, hold it magnetically together. But he says landing this jet safely may not be within the scope of my abilities. And you can see that they're coming towards land now. And let's see what happens next. Oh yeah, I've mentioned this in a recent video. There was a big shock at Marvel in 1996, very specifically August 12th, 1996. Marvel Comics lost one of its favorite sons when executive editor Mark Gruenwald suffered a fatal heart attack. So look at this. He was born in 1953, died in 1996. He was only 43 when he died, and died suddenly. And for many people, Mark Gruenwald's death marked the end of the original era of Marvel that stretched from Fantastic Four 1961, like number one, 1961, all the way to 1996, because it's not long after this that Marvel becomes bankrupt, in effect, files Chapter 11, big financial trouble, and trying all sorts of things in order to get out of the red into the black again. But lots of tributes here for Mark Gruenwald. He was beloved in the industry. Interesting what Bob Harris says here. He's become editor-in-chief now at Marvel. It can be said without reservation that Mark Gruenwald embodied the spirit of what we like to think Marvel is and should be. We've lost a dear and great friend. He was one of the sweetest guys you could ever meet, and I will miss him more than I can say. And you see here Chris Claremont saying he loved his job, he loved his work. The Marvel Universe was for him the best playpen ever invented. The thing that reached through everything he did was this basic sense of wonder about the characters, the concepts, the world. He got the chance to earn his living doing what he loved, and that is a rare thing. And they've created a scholarship in his memory at the University of Wisconsin as well. So yeah, everybody really rocked by the sudden death of Mark Gruenwald in the summer of 1996. But back to the story. Magneto there is being fired on by the Brotherhood's plane, but of course he's well able to defend himself, he says. Some things like self-defense come naturally, so he knocks that craft out of the sky using his magnetic powers, and then he begins to concentrate in order to land the plane. So a very good double-page spread here by Cedric Nocon as Havok and Alex continue to fall through the sky and fight. And Havok declares, "I'm not living under the wing of Professor Xavier and in the shadow of my brother anymore. Don't you get it, Scott? For the first time in my life, I'm free." Free, he exclaims as he hits his brother in the jaw. And then he teleports away. He left. He teleported and actually left me here to die. Scott wonders to himself. He's shocked, but Storm is there to grab him. So again, his decision to have Storm and Magneto come along and trail himself and the Beast on Concorde saves his life in this instance. And he thinks to himself, actually, I believe Havok when he says we may be looking at the real Alex for the first time in his life. And then he thinks, heaven help us all if he's right. So let's continue. There's 2 pages of letters here. Still about Onslaught, and then we're coming towards the end of the issue. So we've got a scene here where Joseph lands the plane safely, and he begins to wonder to himself, just how powerful am I? Because he's able to pick up the radio calls from the tower there to the plane. And then we have Jameson here seeing Magneto outside and kind of in shock as to how Magneto could be working with the X-Men. So there's a little bit of comedy here where the Beast basically just is very low-key about the whole business. When Jameson says to him, "But don't you think you X-Men have enough of a hard time with public relations as it is? You don't need to go around recruiting evil mutants." And Beast just says, "Well, sure, when you put it like that." And then Joseph flies off and he thinks he enjoyed it. He enjoyed the challenge of catching and landing the Concorde. And now we get the conclusion. Jonah has arrived in London. Here's his London correspondent, Daily Bugle reporter. He's got the file there. Who is this in the shadows? He thinks it's Jameson, but it isn't. It turns out to be Bastian. And Bastian basically kills him with a laser blast. And he says to Nick, his corpse, he says, "You won't tell a soul. For the moment, Graydon Creed serves a valuable, if tenuous, function within the machinations of Operation Zero Tolerance. If it means anything, I'm genuinely sorry you got involved," he says, "for while there is bound to be much bloodshed in the final solution," there is a phrase with a history going back to Hitler and the Nazis, "to the problem of mutants, it is unfortunate that our side should be one of the first casualties. But then," he says, "sacrifices must be made, Nick. Sacrifices must be made," as he walks off whistling a cheerful song in the London fog and moonlight. So there you go. Some advertisements here for X-Man, and a full page ad here. New artistic team of Roger Cruz and Bud De La Rosa. And that is my review and commentary of Uncanny X-Men 339. Yet another chapter in the sibling rivalry between Scott Summers and Alex Summers, brothers forever quarreling across the decades of X-Men comics. And yeah, so let me know what you think about this particular issue in the comments section to the video. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like the video on YouTube and share it. It really helps the channel. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.